Well, William King, welcome to this special series we're calling the Making Reagan series, where we're going to talk to some of the folks who worked on the film with us, but we're just going to use that as an excuse to talk about your whole life and get into all the good stuff. So thanks for coming in.
Oh, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. I had to run in the house to get here, but you
Well,
know,
we're
life is life is full.
we're glad to have you. And before we start kind of talking about some of the great music you've made, I wanted to talk about the song we did for the Reagan film.
Oh yeah.
You remember we screened the movie for you down in Nashville, and you had you dusted off this great song that you'd had. I'd love to hear more about the song and where it came from and kind of what inspired you with the film to make the song.
Well, I tell you, um, that's like you said. I definitely dusted that off. That song was about when I first met my wife now, and it was all about how she was just standing there alone, and I saw her. There was nobody else there. It was just her standing in this one place in a hallway. And I thought, oh my Lord, that's her. Okay. And I wasn't looking for any girlfriend or, any kind of relationship, nothing. I was, you know, coming out of a marriage. And so I thought, you know, she just looks like an angel standing down there. So I walked over to her. I didn't know her, didn't know her name, didn't know why she was standing there, anything. And I put my arms around her out of nowhere, around her waist, and I picked her up off the floor. And she turned around and looked at me, and her eyes got big as 50-cent pieces. And she went, "Who is this man who's picked me?" You know. And I said, "Where'd you get this little bitty waist from?" And I sat her back down. I let her put her back down, and then she didn't run. I thought, well, that's good. And
That's
so
that's a good step.
that's a good step. And so then I just started talking to her, and asking her why she was there. She said, "Well, I came to the Commodores show." I said, "Well, good."
I know those guys.
Yeah, so that's why I'm here too.
Wow.
So, and we just started talking and talking and talking, and next thing I knew, we were together from that day on until now.
Yeah, because after we watched the movie, I know what struck you the most was that love connection between Ron and Nancy, right?
Yeah, to me that is what the whole thing was about, was the relationship between the two of them,
Right.
right? And so it needed to be a song that kind of expressed that,
Hmm.
you know. It's like this song, the first time I saw you, you know, um, I fell in love or something like that. I mean, because when you see somebody for the first time, um, sometimes you don't get a lot out of it, right?
Hmm.
You think you get, just the, um, you know, but love is not one of the things you get from it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that in their relationship, God, I think it was just love from the first day with them until the end. And I wanted to express that in that song. And I knew that song had to be a ballad,
Yeah.
right? It had to be something, um, it's like the first time I saw your face, right? And I think that's the way it was for them.
Right. Did
And
you did that song was that kind of was it always around in your head, or did it come to you, like you said, after you met your wife, or was it always, I mean, was it from an earlier session that you thought of it, or what are the origins of it?
no, no, it was from when I saw her.
Okay. Okay.
That really started that song off in my head.
Yeah.
And the thing about me is that most of my melodies and lyrics come to me while I'm in bed sleeping.
Hmm.
And I wake up and they're there, right? And so I have to jump up and get my tape recorder and hum them into the tape
Yep.
recorder.
I get
Because
it. And
because if I take
now
four,
it's probably your iPhone.
yeah, now if I have to go 4 or 5 steps, sometimes you lose it, right?
Yeah.
So I have it right there on the side of my bed, and I jump right up and I hum it. So that melody came to me about 5 o'clock in the morning, if I remember correctly. And I actually got up, hummed it, and then went downstairs to my piano and started putting the chords to it. So for me, that song was very special. And I could see in that movie that they were special to each other,
Yeah.
right?
Boy,
So
the reason that I asked about that is it just had such a classic Commodores vibe to it. I
oh
felt
yeah,
like it was just like I was transported back to 1981 and all the great songs the ballads that you guys are putting out.
yeah,
But that's clearly your vibe. But on the issue, you raised the issue of kind of your inspiration in the nighttime. I don't think I we talked about this, but I dreamed the first 10 minutes of the movie. But I knew if I don't wake myself up, I will never remember this in the morning. So I woke myself up, wrote the whole thing down, went back to sleep.
yeah.
And
See, that's the right thing to do.
yeah, that's the way our minds work, huh?
That's the right thing to do. I guess maybe there's some people, some writers out there that can wait until the next day and jump up and grab a guitar or keyboards, but for me, it doesn't work that way. I have to get it while it's there,
Yeah.
right?
What do you think that is? Is that our subconscious? Is it God? Like what's going on in our heads, do you think?
It's definitely our subconscious, I, without a doubt. But it's amazing. Some of the songs I've done, excuse me, I can hear the violins, horn, I hear everything, right? In the middle of the night, I, I, I can hear them, right? So,
Mm.
so, and I can hear the blend. I know what instruments to play, what parts. Um, but I've been doing this a long time, so I guess now, because in my early days it wasn't like that,
Yeah.
you know.
Well,
Um,
take us back to those early days. I know Alabama.
yeah,
That's where you're from, and you guys met at school, I believe.
we
How
met
did
at Tuskegee.
how did the group come together?
Well, um, we literally bumped into each other, and it was in the rec room, and Tommy and Richie had met earlier, I believe, and so I ran into them, and we started talking, and instead of shooting pool, and one would say to the other, I mean, I play this, I'd play that, I play guitar. He said, "Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Well, I play trumpet." Richard says, "Well, I play saxophone. So let's get together and do some things, right?" And so that was the beginning. We got with some other guys um, back then, and sometimes we had two or three bass players. We had two or three, everybody, right? Everybody was trying to get into the band.
Mm.
Um, so we kind of we narrowed it down pretty quick, pretty quick. And so back then, Richie uh, didn't sing.
Mm.
He played saxophone.
Really?
Yeah, and he and I and Tommy and a guy named Michael, we would sing backgrounds when necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But no, no, no. Richie didn't sing. I didn't sing. Tommy didn't sing. Uh, we had two other guys that sang for us. And then we were called the Mystics then.
Mm-hmm.
We were called the Mystics for about 2 months,
Uh-huh.
2 or 3 months. And there was another group called the Jays, and they broke up. And they wanted us to join them.
Mm.
And they were older, you know,
Right.
older guys. And so we thought, what the heck? So we did. We joined them. And that was the beginning. They said, we need a new name if we're going to merge the two groups together.
Mm.
And so we did that. And so they took a dictionary and put it in my hands. And the order was that whatever I put my finger on, that would be the name of the group.
Wow, that's dangerous.
I know, man. And they said, no
Man.
matter what it is. And you have to remember, there was a lot of strange names back there. Pink Floyd,
Right.
the Grateful Dead, right? I mean, a lot of strange names back then, but they were hip names, you know.
Yeah.
And Three Dog Night, right?
Right. Right.
So, so we wanted something kind of like that, right? Because
Right.
we had decided that our music was going to be R&B pop, basically, right? So, put my word in it, and so we flipped it over, and I put my finger down, and it was Commodore,
Oh man.
and everybody said Commodore. What the hell is a Commodore? No, excuse me.
Wow.
So, um, I mean, so so we said, but wait a minute. Everyone said, let's do it again. He said, no. We said whatever the first word was that I put my
Right.
finger on, that would be the name of the group. And so we stuck to it. We just put an S on it, pluralized it, and that's how we got the name Commodores.
I think the most famous Commodore is Commodore Perry, who
Yes.
opened up Japan, right? Yeah, the black ships.
So I tell you, man, they don't use the name anymore on the ships. The
Right.
Commodores
Right.
is not the commander anymore.
So you own you got the name all to yourselves now.
Yes.
I
Yeah, that's the
had I
team.
had I had never heard that story before. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So it was, you know, it's actually two of us that has a trademark on that name,
Mm-hmm.
and that's Tennessee, the university,
Mm-hmm.
because they are the Commodores. Is it Tennessee? I think it's Tennessee. But
Wow.
who has the band? No, it's Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Vanderbilt Commodores. One of them. I can't remember which now. It's been so long ago. We actually went to court. Uh,
Really?
yeah, um, a long time ago. I think it was like they met outside the court, basically. And
See.
I think the judge just said, "Look, it's two different things."
Yeah, it's not even close.
Yeah, he said, "One's university,
Yeah.
one's in music. Yeah, you both just go and use the name and
Yeah.
be
You
done with
guys
it."
you guys stay away from the music. You guys stay away from the books and you'll be
That's right.
fine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
No, that's
So,
great.
that's how we got the name. And I don't know if you remember our logo,
Yeah.
but we are so proud of that logo.
I remember there was a red album cover with the logo on it. Which one was
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, we told the guy, it was a guy we brought in to design us a logo out in California.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's questioning us about what it is we want it to be. And we didn't really know, right? So, but we wanted it to be powerful. We wanted to show strength,
Yeah.
you know, um, that kind of thing. So what he did was he took a piece of metal and he hammered it with the sparks flying until he was trying to see a vision out of it.
Mm.
And he after he had hammered it for a while, he said he had it, he got it,
Mm.
and he made that logo. So if you haven't seen, if you don't remember, you should see that logo
Yeah.
because I think you did a really good job.
Mm.
So we carried that logo and we'll carry that logo on into the future.
Yeah. Well, you guys have had such an incredible career, obviously, but walk us through. So when does Lionel move to singing, and what is the impact that he had on you guys? And he younger than you guys, or are you guys all in the same ages?
So we're all about the same age.
Okay.
Yeah. My birthday is in January and Richie's birthday is in June, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, 5 months, 5 or 6 months ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I was crying in my mother's arms before he was.
Right. Right.
Uh,
So how did he
but
transition to singing?
okay, we had two guys that were singing, and one of the guys we sung to death, if you know what I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
Night after night, because we were working, man. We used to work 6 and
Well,
7
you're
nights.
you're still working. I mean, you're
Oh
you're
yeah,
your age and you're still out there, so that
yeah,
hasn't changed.
yeah, yeah. Now we've always believed in working. Um, but, we're doing 6, 7 nights, every night, and back then we were doing shows 40 minutes on and 20 minutes off. Start at 10 o'clock and we get off at 5 o'clock in the morning, right? So it was a lot of singing and playing and whatever. And it was kind of wearing one of the guys out. So Richie had, we had heard Richie doing the backgrounds, and he had the best voice of all of us doing the
Mm.
background. So the guy said, "Look, man, you need to come up here and sing something." And Richie said, "I don't want to sing anything." He said, "Come on, guy." So it took about, I don't know, a while before we finally got Richie. So he sung a song called Wichita Lineman.
Yep, of course.
And I tell you, he used to sing the heck out of it.
Mm.
And we'd play that song, and after we'd finish it, people would say, "Play it again, play it again, play it again." So sometimes we played that song 2 or 3 times in the night
Mm.
because he did such a good job of it. But he only had one song. That was the only song he sang
Wow.
because he was playing saxophone, and he
Right.
didn't really want to sing.
Wow.
And we used to go, he and I were roommates all the time when we traveled. And when we got to the room, I'd give him a broom, not a broom, a brush, and he'd practice in the room, because he would stand there like somebody had nailed his feet to the floor. And I said, "Dude, you gotta move, okay?" I said, "The spotlight's on you. The guy in the spotlight gonna get tired because he's not moving right."
Wow.
So we just practice and practice and practice, and finally he started moving a bit on the stage, and he got used to it, and we gave him another song, and it just blossomed into what it is.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah,
And then, so you guys have obviously had some massive hits, 70s, early 80s, and then you took a little bit of a break, right? Kind of a hiatus, and that helped launch his solo career, as I understand it.
yeah. Like I said, look, we had done two tours with the Jackson Five, right? And they were like 110 to 120 dates a year, just them. Then we had our own thing that we were doing,
Right.
right? So, man, we were on the road a lot.
Mm.
Um, but then the family started coming, the children, right?
Right.
So some of the guys, I mean, me included, I wanted to stay home with my kids a while, and we could have, and we could afford to do it. So we didn't have to be out there, but it
Hmm.
was what we it was like we were born to do that, right? It's what
Mm.
we loved.
Hmm.
But life changes,
Yeah.
and so in that interim, um, um, we had another tour in there, and I think where were we going? I think it was overseas. I think we were going to Europe somewhere.
Mm.
Um, and that's when, but we hadn't left the United States yet. We were still touring in the United States, and that's when we found out Richie was wanted to leave.
Mm.
Okay, now look, if you're in a group band singing group, it doesn't matter. If one of the guys, you can tell when somebody's not feeling
Mm.
right, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, and all of us was beginning to feel that about Richie. So we tried to sit him down and say, "Okay, guy, what's on your mind?" But he'd always say, "Nothing, nothing, nothing, nothing." You know what I
Mm.
mean? I'm gonna be here until until I die. So so he said, "Yeah, okay." Um, um, but one day when we were out, um, he came to me and asked me to tell the group that he wanted to leave.
Mm.
And I said, "Nah. When I leave, I'll tell the group I'm leaving. When you leave, you tell the group you're leaving." Right?
Right.
So he did.
Mm.
He did. And so you know we said he was going to leave after that tour. So we all knew it.
Mm.
So
This is like
we thought
82, 82,
it was
81.
82. It was 81 going into 82.
And do you think that was the uneasiness was because he was getting offers or Or what do you think was going on that was making him feel that way?
Um, it's undoubtedly Motown was pushing him in that direction. You know,
Mm,
that's what they do, right? They
right,
push Michael, they push Diana Ross.
right,
You know, they, it's just they know they can make more money because now they got the group making money for them, and then they got a solo artist from it.
right.
You know, so
Got it.
now they got the Supremes making records. They got Diana singing, making records. That's double. They got, it's just, you know, um,
So that they
Smokey
start whispering
Robinson.
in they start whispering in the artist's ear, hey,
Yeah,
maybe you should go solo. Maybe you're the attraction here. It's just things like that.
that's right.
Right,
That's exactly right.
right,
So we tried to counter that, you know, because we thought we had um, uniqueness in that we like so much being together.
right. Yeah,
But I think, between what Richie was thinking in his own head and the people around him was telling him,
yeah,
and I think he was thinking, if I can do these kind of crowds with Commodores, I probably can do this by myself.
yeah. It's hard to resist that. That feeling, right?
Yeah. So
Um,
I said to him, look, dude, I am not uh, angry with you about this. I said, but it does upset me. And I said, and we're going to be the ones to struggle, meaning the group.
mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because I know as soon as you leave, the promoters, excuse me, the buyers are going to be saying, well, who's going to sing those parts? He's not there to sing those,
Right.
he's the one that's singing. Um, and we really didn't have an answer for that.
Mm,
So, we finally got someone. We got J.D. Nicholas,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
which he has a beautiful voice. And he stayed with me for 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He retired, was it 2 years ago in December?
Mm.
He had just had enough of the road after 40 years. And I get it, right?
Yeah.
I get
Well,
it.
the songs that made you guys household names, I know you wrote one of them for sure. You wrote Lady,
But let you bring me up.
and that cracked
And
the
then there's a
top
lot of
10.
co-writing, like
Yep.
Brick Out
Yep.
was a co-writing. My wife helped write the lyrics to that. My ex-wife
Right.
helped write the lyrics to that. It was supposed to be me, her, and Clyde, Walter Orange.
Right.
Uh, that put those lyrics together. Um, so yeah, we all wrote quite a few. Everybody was writing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So you wrote
and
Brick House too?
yeah, I was a writer on Brick House.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was all of the Commodores. And I tell you, that song almost didn't come out.
Mm.
It was the last song that we put on the album.
Wow.
We needed one more song. So we just rushed and did that track,
Mm.
right? That beginning is
Yep.
right? And that's the drum cadence that
Mm.
Clyde used in college.
Mm.
See, because we were in a
Wow.
hurry, right? We
Yeah.
said, just play anything.
Where did the term brick house come from? What did it mean at the time? Like, was it a phrase that did you guys make it up or what?
Yes. No, no,
Wow.
no, no, no. It's from the South,
Okay.
right? It's a brick shit house.
Okay.
You know, that's where it comes from,
Okay.
right? It's an outhouse.
Right.
And people who had outhouses, you know how rickety they were,
Yeah.
made out of wood. They would lean in one way or the other. But people who had money, or people who had extent, they had a brick house. So that house was, powerful. You didn't have to worry about it leaning over a storm on it or whatever, right? So
Mm.
anybody who could have that, that was the best you could do. That's the best. And
Wow.
so we took the bad word out of it and
Right.
it made a brick house. So that means this woman is the best woman of ever.
So she's solid.
She's solid, man. Okay. And so she's a brick house.
Wow.
And we, for days, we were trying to decide what the measurements could be, right? Because we had the measurements in the song,
Right,
24, 36, whatever, right?
right, right.
36, 24, 36, I think it is. Um, and so, we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because, a woman's beauty is in the eye of the beholder,
Right.
right? Some guys like a lot of hips, some guys like thin hips, you know what I mean? It varies according to the particular guy, or woman, right?
Right.
So, um, so we spoke about that for a couple of days, but we just went back to what people do 36, 24, 36, and let people's imaginations take off. And boy, did their imaginations take off. Even today, their imaginations take off. You should see the ladies that, when we start playing Brick House, they run down to the front of the
Mm,
stage. And they go back in their minds and their bodies as to what they were doing when they were, 20, 18, 19, what they
right.
were doing when they heard that song, how they
Wow.
danced when they heard that song.
Wow.
And they let go, man. They let loose out there. And that's all told like you wouldn't believe.
I had no idea the origins. I don't know how I missed that. But do most people know about that story? I don't think people know about that.
Well, we spoken about it many times in the interviews.
Mm,
You know,
wow.
um, and I tell you, again, the song almost didn't make the album.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's incredible.
The
Incredible.
co-producer decided not to put it on there.
Mm,
Uh, and so, but uh, Clyde, his name is Walter Orange, but Clyde went in the studio because we were in the studio across from him doing, I think it was, what song were we doing then? Um, one of the ballads, I can't remember.
Like Stale or Three Times a Lady, or what was it?
Something like that. Anyway, um, and he just took the assistant engineer, Jane Clark,
Hmm.
and when he said, Jane, I want to put a vocal on it
Mm,
because we just had the track.
right.
And boy, he sang the Eli Whitney out of that song. He really, and so when we came out of that session, he said, come here, I want y'all to hear something. And as soon as we heard it, we said, yep, we're going with that song.
Wow.
But if he had not have sang on that song would not have even been on the album.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And
Then,
yeah, I was gonna say Three Times a Lady, that came from a conversation that one of you guys overheard, right? From a parent, maybe was it? Was it a dad or
well, it was Richie.
Richie? Okay.
It was Richie. He wanted to say how much he cared for his mother
Right.
because he felt that his father hadn't been giving enough love to
Right.
his mother. So
Right.
this was his way of saying it. How much I loved you, how much of a mom you are, how much of a woman you are. You're
Yeah.
not only one or twice, but you're three times. And
Right.
that was the thought behind the song.
Yeah. Well, you guys had so many hits around that period of time. And then but the great news about the group is that Lionel leaves, but the hits keep coming.
Yeah,
And you had night shift
yeah. We were
after that.
very lucky. And so, the bottom line for us was we were a working group,
Hmm.
right? Um, Second, we were a recording group.
Right.
But our number one thing was we love being on stage. And so, we just decided to just work, work, and work. And when we had night shift, all the people who had abandoned us came back. You know how that
Mm.
is.
Yep.
We knew you could do it, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Um, but we left them behind, right? And we had a bunch of managers coming, telling me they wanted to manage us and blah, blah, blah. You didn't want to manage us when Richie left.
Right. Right.
No. So, no. Um, so it was an uphill battle.
How
But
important?
a hit song changes everything.
was gonna say, how important was night shift just to show, to prove that you guys were more than one person? How important was that for you?
It was everything. Because look, when you're on the road track, it decides the venues you play, well, how large they are. You know, definitely uh, 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 the money, right? That the promoters are willing to pay,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just you could go from $200,000 a night down to $50,000 a night. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, it enables you to keep your name high enough where you can make the money that you want to make,
Right.
right? And it also uh, gives you the crowds that you want to play to. One thing I really, really love for at least the last 3 or 4 years, maybe five, we're getting a lot of young people down at our concerts now.
Mm.
A lot of them, and
Mm.
I am so happy about that. And I talked to many of them, and the number one theme behind it all is my mom or my dad plays your music in the house all the time.
Mm.
So I got to learn certain songs, and I wondered who the group was that
Mm.
was doing these songs.
Wow.
And I found out you guys were in town. So I got my boyfriend, called my mom and dad, and all four of us came out.
No, it's amazing.
It is. It is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so we're working on generations after
Mm-hmm.
generation.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
What? So when hip hop enters the scene,
Yes.
obviously with Sugar Hill Gang, and other artists after that, Run DMC, what does that do to you guys? I mean, you guys are, not that they're not musicians, but you guys are musicians, musicians.
Yeah.
You play all kinds of instruments. Well, how does that feel at the time? What does it mean to you guys and what you're doing?
Well, the bottom line for me was when all of that started happening, I didn't consider it music.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, but I thought it was more like a fad.
Right.
Right. Then I realized it wasn't going anywhere. Right. So, so, but it was different.
Hmm.
And so, here's the thing. Do you join that, right? Trying to be like that?
Right.
Because there is no good or bad, right? It's just what it is.
Sure.
Um, so are you going to try to just put a little bit in your music, blah, 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 blah. Um, so we decided that we liked what we were doing. But we had the thought, though, of joining that or, you know, intermingling
Mm.
it in our music a little bit. But in the end, we tried to write a couple of things, if I remember, um, around that, but none of us was satisfied with it, right?
I don't recall that. Did you guys have some elements and some songs
No,
like that? Yeah.
no, no, no.
Never
But
released
but,
it.
but we experimented,
Right.
you know. You was like
But
everybody else at the time. You bring those records in and you listen to them for 2 or 3 days. Listen to the bass pattern. You listen to what the drums are doing. The rhythmic in it. How do they get that kind of sound, that kind of feeling, right?
right.
And it's the rhythmic thing, right? And once you get that, once you get the rhythm of it, I mean, you can do anything. It's kind of like you can take any song and make it sound any way you want it to,
Right.
right? You can take three times a lady and make it hip hop. You can take,
Hmm.
well,
Hmm.
actually, I think one group did take it and do hip hop. But anyway, um, it's just a matter of arrangement
Right.
of how to do it. But there's also a matter of feeling, right? When you just feel something in a song and you're playing drums or guitar or whatever, I mean, that comes out of you to your keyboards, right? And all of a sudden that keyboard is just smoking, man. And I don't mean something that's being played fast.
Right.
I mean it's the feel of how you stroke those keys. and and that puts magic in the song. So we really spent a lot of time trying to get our tracks right, just the music
Mm-hmm.
to get that right, to where it felt like we wanted it. One time we did a song, and we would always record demos in Tuskegee of all the songs because we only cut uh, a number of songs. We would decide whether it was 10 songs or 12 songs, and that's all the songs we would cut. We
Mm.
didn't go out there and cut 50 songs and then try to choose out of that number of songs.
Right.
We were ready. We did that in Tuskegee. We put those songs together in Tuskegee. We would cut them in Tuskegee. We had a studio there.
Mm.
And then we would take the tracks and we would go out to LA and cut in Motown studio in LA.
Mm.
And there was one song I was just thinking about um, that we had done the backgrounds at home, back in Tuskegee rather. And when we got out there, we were trying to do the background parts. But you know what? We couldn't get to jail, right? We couldn't get them to jail.
Mm.
They didn't sound as moving as the ones we had done in Tuskegee.
Right.
So we used the ones that we recorded in Tuskegee. And, you know, the demo. We used the demo version.
Mm.
So, hey, man, and the song was a major hit.
Mm.
It was just to be close to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm.
you know, you never know, man. I
Yeah.
tell you.
But was there like, did you have some frustration with hip hop that it doesn't have the musicianship that you guys have and others in your era had, or how did you feel about that?
Oh no, absolutely. I think every band uh, felt that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, what were these guys doing, right? It wasn't music to us,
Right. Right.
right? Um, it was just loud, right? But I think what we all didn't understand was it was something that was coming from these guys, truly how they felt, because they were
Mm.
coming from a very uh, desolate and poor area of town or whatever.
Right.
And
From the
these were their
streets.
feelings. Yes.
Right.
And this feeling was, everybody could feel it. It was taking over,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And it wasn't a fad.
It wasn't a fad.
Yeah.
And
But then you're
so,
also you're also hit by disco. So you're being hit by all sides. And how do you adapt to disco? I mean, I think you did a little bit of adaptation to
well,
disco.
we did a lot of it, disco. We
Right.
had, as a matter of fact, our very first song was disco. Uh, um, and that song, uh, what was his name? God, I got to think of the name of the song now. But anyway, that song went on to sell over 1 million copies. The very first song we ever put out.
Mm.
And it was an instrumental.
Mm.
It was a song to dance by.
Right.
Okay. And so once we had that song, we thought, oh Lord, but it's no faces with it, right? It's no name with the song.
Right.
It's just a dance song. They turned it on and they were played in every disco everywhere. And even when we went to Europe, it was the number one or number three song in whatever country we were in. Right? So we instantly had to do some vocals on a song so that we could put an album out with our faces on it. And well, our first album actually had our faces on it,
Mm.
but the music didn't carry that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It just carried itself. So we had to go to work on the next album and make sure we didn't do any disco. I don't think on the second album. We we were too afraid we'd get another song like that. Machine Gun. The name of the song was Machine Gun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And God, I tell you what, that song put us out there. I'm very appreciative of that song. It was written by Marlon Williams,
Hmm.
and Marlon was the keyboard player for us. And what a great guy! Born in Mississippi, down in the gut bucket area of Mississippi, and he talked like this, you know. And he played guitar like those guys way back in the South. He played jazz and he played keyboards and guitar and bass.
Mm,
What a musician he was. But
mm.
he died from
It-
cancer.
okay. So you survived disco, you survived hip hop. I don't think you went grunge or heavy metal on us, but it's got
No,
to be a challenge to keep up with the times and still be yourselves.
it is, and it's happening now today, right? We are actually um, doing an album, right? We just finished a Christmas album,
Mm,
which I love, um, and that, of course, will be out in Christmas.
right.
Um, but we're putting together a Commodores album, and just I call it the new album, and we are in the process of trying to figure out. Well, we know we don't want to be in the old bag,
Hmm.
right, of Commodores.
Right.
We got to come up with some fresh music. I don't want to say new; it's got to be fresh.
Right.
So that's what we're in the process of doing now. I think we've chosen 3 songs so far,
Mm.
um, but I want to do about 8 or 9, and out of that 8 or 9, we're going to choose the first hit. And I'm not going to put all the songs out at once. We're going to put we think the one that's going to be the hit out first
Mm.
and see how that does. And
And
that's our thoughts right now.
yeah, so you remained relevant. You've touring all over the place. I know we caught up one of your shows out here in LA, but
Yes,
I was just back to Night Shift. I think you also updated that about Michael Jackson after he passed away, right? Instead of in
yes,
addition to Marvin Gaye.
yes. Well, we were asked to do that by a producer, some producer out in LA, and it kind of caught on right in the group. The guys said, "Yeah,
Mm,
I tell you the truth, I really wasn't for it. Tell you the truth,
mm,
I thought, look, we already got Marvin Gaye and it's great, da da da."
hmm.
So we actually did it for. They were having some kind of celebration
I see.
out in LA,
Mm.
and we did that song, and they it was played at the celebration. So I'm not even sure we released that. We probably did. Motown was releasing everything they had of us
Right.
at the time, right? They were trying to
So
squeeze all the juice out of the orange.
so was Michael, you were a friend of mine. That was the idea.
Yes,
Yeah.
because we
Well,
had been touring with them, right?
yeah, it's hard to top Marvin. You were a friend of mine, but if you want to try, that's fine.
Yeah, I know. That was my feeling exactly.
Yeah.
But we did.
Did you know Marvin Gaye pretty well?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
we weren't buddies, but he would come in the studio. We would be in the studio at the same time. He would be across the hall from us recording.
Mm.
But he would come over and say, "Let's go play basketball," because right
Mm.
next to that studio was a park,
Uh-huh.
and you just literally cross a little 2-lane road,
Mm.
and you were in the park. And he wanted to go play basketball, so he come in there and get us, and we said, "Marvin, we're paying for this time, man. you know, $250 an hour, dude. Come on, right?" And he said, "I forget that, And you go over there, we go over and play basketball
Mm.
for 2 hours. It was, and we come back tired. You know what I mean? Still had to record.
Somebody's paying for that time.
Somebody's paying for that time.
Might have been Motown, might have been Barry Gordy.
Yeah, no, no, no. It was us. The artist pays for everything when it comes to
Mm. Eventually, right?
yeah, yeah.
All the
Just wait
lim
till
all the
just wait till
limos, all the stuff comes back to eventually.
oh yeah. I
Yeah.
remember one time what is it? I don't know, one time. But I remember one time because I was the guy that did the numbers for the group, right? I
Mm.
was the numbers man. And they all wanted, it just, every night they just wanted to bring in pizza and hot dogs and the bills were coming in, they'd be like $600 a night. 800. I had to sit everybody down and say, okay, you know what? Everybody's on his own. You order your own hot dog. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the group is paying for all this, okay? Because our first album cost $40,000.
Mm.
Our second album was over $100,000. Same guys,
Yep.
okay? Double. But what had happened was we had a hit. So now, money is like, yeah, and that's amazing when that happens.
And then a couple years later, a music video probably cost $100,000.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So,
How, how about MTV? What does MTV enters the picture in 81 ish? What does that do to you guys, if anything? And how do you have to adjust to that new era of visual representation?
oh yeah, you have to remember um, when that happened, we were kind of like new, and we had never done videos before. So I think our first video we did was in Europe. And I'm trying to think of the name of the song. I think it was "Flying High"
Mm.
that we had released in Europe. And so we had these things, flying around us in the studio, and it was truly bad. Um, but we were trying to put out a video, and it actually worked in Europe. We tried to release it here in the States, but it wasn't of the right quality.
Mm.
So when we came back here, we did another video with a song I wrote called "Lady You Bring Me Up,"
Right.
and but they did pick that up, you know.
I think
Uh,
I remember the trumpets in that one.
yeah, it's
Very
um,
visual.
it's um, it's a very danceable song,
Yeah.
and I think that was the most thing. It got a hold of the other people. The rhythm of the music got a hold, um, and so that we were able to get that out.
You must have had a lot of cornball ideas thrown at you for music videos from some of those people in those days, I'm guessing.
You know what? Actually, not so much, because we wrote our own videos.
Okay. Okay.
We had one or two that we brought in producers to do. We had a song that was called "Going to the Bank."
Mm.
Yeah, it didn't go anywhere, uh, not even to the bank. But anyway, I tell you the truth, I really did like the song. I thought the song was going to make it. But we brought a guy in to do a video on that, a producer that I had never heard of, but the powers that to be,
Right.
and I think he did a really good job on the video. Um, but most of the videos we did, I wrote most of them, and
Yes. Some of them stand the test of time, others don't.
that's
I
right.
don't know that dancing on the ceiling stands the test of time, but that's okay. There was a lot of
It was a lot of
uh
fun. It was a lot of fun.
yeah, well, it was an era, it was a new form, so people didn't know how to use it at first, but it sounds like you guys did. Um, but we skipped around a lot career-wise, but take me back to your early years and your upbringing. What was that like, and what was your home life like, and what was it like
Oh,
growing up in Alabama?
Alabama. I grew up in a mixture, right? In a mixed family. I I grew up with my grandmother on my father's side, but my mother's family lived 2 blocks from us.
Hmm.
I was an only child when I went to my father's side, mother, and when I would go to my mother's side, there were like 8 to 10 people there. It was a full house, man, because my grandmother had 12 children.
Mm.
Okay, And my mother was one of those 12. And my mother had graduated from school early. She was like a prodigy. She and when she was very young, 11, 12, 13, she was playing Mozart, Beethoven, all that kind of stuff. So then she began to travel, and my mother was not one of the ones that stayed home, right? So I was raised by my grandmother.
Mm.
But anytime I wanted to be by myself as an only child, I stayed with my father's mother. And when I wanted to be, you know, in a family and there were 8, 10 people sitting at the dinner table throwing things at each other, right? I could go to my other grandmother.
Mm.
And all I had to do was call one or the other and let them know where I was going to be that night.
Mm.
And that was, it was great. I was basically raised as an only child.
Mm.
And I tell you how you know you're an only child. It's when you can go in the refrigerator and just get the ice cream box, put it in your lap, and watch TV and eat out of it. Right? Because you don't have to share it with anybody, you know. So, and I loved being an only child.
Mm.
And, my Christmases were like, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, it was like that Dennis the Menace, that, I don't know if people remember those cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they had one where he was, it was Christmas morning, and the presents were all around the tree, all the way to the door, and you couldn't even get in the room hardly for all the gifts, right? And my Christmases was like that every Christmas.
Mm.
And I used to hold my birthday parties at our little city auditorium, a gym, because I'd have, 100 kids, 200 kids at each one of my birthdays.
Mm.
So we had trouble getting all the gifts back home a lot of times, right?
Mm.
Um, I don't know. My father was a trumpet player,
Mm.
but he was killed in the Korean War.
Is that right?
Yeah. My grandmother on my father's side was a musician. She
Mm.
played keyboards, taught music. My mother, I got to tell you, was a very gifted pianist
Mm-hmm.
at a very young age. And so I kind of grew up through the music. It was music in my house every day,
Mm.
7 days a week. That was somebody banging on that doggone piano,
Mm.
right? Um,
And what were the music your folks were listening to and your grandparents? What kind of music were they listening to?
Very modern music. Back at the time, it was Johnny Mathis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was that kind of music, right? It was. Um, I mean, Al Hurt was the trumpet player
Mm-hmm.
at that time, and so I started playing trumpet when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I played my first gig when I was 12
Wow.
in a club, in a nightclub.
Mm.
A friend of mine called me. He said, "We need a trumpet player, and I heard you play. I'd like for you to play." I said, "Sure." I didn't realize it was going to be in a nightclub,
Mm.
you know, you know. And so I went with him. Didn't tell my grandmother, and came home about 1 o'clock in the morning. 12 years old.
12.
Yeah. And I can remember when we pulled up to the house in the car, the guy said, "You want me to come in and talk to your grandmother?" I told him, "No." I said, "There's no need of both of us getting a whipping. You need, you need to
Wow.
leave." And sure enough, when I got out of that car, it was wham, 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 wham,
Oh,
wham.
man.
Yes, Lord. She came through that screen door like a bat out of you know where. And
Yeah,
she was,
was she like a church lady? Was she
oh yes,
yeah, okay.
but not overly,
Yeah.
right? And I'll tell you that right quick too. Um, but after she whipped me, my grandmother would always explain anything she wanted me to do, right?
Mm.
She'd tell me why. if I got a whipping, then she'd tell me why I got a whipping, not just whip me and, simply
Okay.
no. She's one of those. She's a
Yeah.
talker.
Yeah.
And so I got it early. I understood a lot of things. So she told me, she said, you know, you got a whipping tonight because you're 12 years old and you didn't call me. And we've been looking everywhere. We've called the
Mm.
neighbors, the police. We got everybody out here looking for you. People walking the streets looking for you.
Mm.
And you're in some club playing. So she tore my little bottom up. But the next weekend, she let me go back
Mm.
because she was a musician.
Mm.
So she understood that,
Mm.
right? But now she knew where I was.
Right.
I got the whipping because I didn't tell her what I wanted to do and where I wanted to do it.
Mm.
So once I realized that, shoot, I was, told her everything.
Mm.
So, um, what was I getting ready to say? Shoot,
Just about the upbringing and
yeah, it was something
you're
about,
starting to
uh,
play at 12.
yeah, one of the things uh, when I got back to the clubs, I remember I was 12. Everybody else in there was a lot older. And so we had a rehearsal one day, uh, and one of the bartenders was passing by, and he said, "Hey kid, you want a drink?" And I said, "Sure." You know, I never thought that he meant it. It was just reaction, right? Yeah, yeah, man, sure.
Right.
So next thing I know, he brought back a glass with scotch in it. Because, oh yeah, he asked me, he said, "What do you want to drink?" I said, "Scotch." Because that's what I'd always heard in the movies and also on television, in the cowboy scenes, right? When they were at the bar,
Right.
right? Scotch, yeah, give me a scotch. So he did. He brought it back and gave it to me. Everybody was looking at me, and I thought, oh Lord. So, in the Western, they throw it up, right? They just take it all
Right.
down at one go. And I did that. And let me tell you, that was the last drink I ever had in my life. I haven't
Is
tasted
that right?
alcohol since that day.
Really?
Oh man, it burned every hole I had.
Wow.
That thing, ooh, Lord have mercy. I sometimes when I talk about it, can still, almost feel it, the pressure and the
Mm.
steam from it.
Mm.
So that was it for me. I said, no, I don't even drink wine. I don't drink beer. I don't drink anything.
Mm. Is
Yeah.
that a religious thing or just a taste thing or what?
No, no, it's just a taste thing.
Mm. Wow.
No, I don't, no, man. I don't know how people can drink that stuff.
Yeah.
No, right?
That is so true. I've thought that all my life. Why do we pretend to, it's you drink something because it tastes good, and
Yeah.
that's so interesting. I've thought that a lot too.
Yeah, man. I tell you, it's just, oh, I can't even believe it. Now, I did one time take moonshine. I did drink some moonshine. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't drink. I tasted some moonshine. And that was like, crazy, man. That was like, no, never. Um, but yeah, you asked me about church. My grandmother wasn't over, and she played organ and keyboard for two churches,
Hmm.
two different churches. So I'll be in one church on the first and third of Sunday, and then another church on the second and fourth.
Wow.
And so, and I always had to sit down front to make sure that I was acting right. So, but when I turned, and I remember I'd be sitting there thinking, because the football game came on at 1 o'clock.
Mm. Hmm.
So I'd be sitting there hoping the preacher didn't get going too much, right? Sometimes they get the spirit right. So
Right. A lot of people are probably hoping that too in the congregation.
yeah. So
Mm.
so so I'd be sitting there hoping he wouldn't go past it. And so as soon as church was out, I go pew. I was out of there trying to get to
Yep.
the house for the football game.
Yep.
Um, but when I turned 16, my grandmother came to me and she said, because I had come up through church. I had Sunday school. I was secretary of the Sunday school. I was the
Mm.
superintendent of the Sunday school. I was a teacher in Sunday school. Um, I'd been through the Bible, read the whole Bible once
Mm.
from beginning to end. And let me tell you, and that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, when you get into to Deuteronomy,
Leviticus and
yeah, man, and,
Deuteronomy. Yeah.
all these people beget all these other people.
Right, right.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, um, she came to me when I was 16, and she said, "You going through everything in church that I can think of you need to do." She said, "So it's up to you from this day forward whether you want to go to church or not."
Mm.
And I stood there and I looked at her and I went, "Really?" She said, "Yes." That was the last time I went to church.
That backfired on her, huh?
Oh God! Now it
Uh,
wasn't actually the last time, but you know what I mean, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, the consistency was gone.
Yeah, right.
And I can tell you right now, I saw every game from 1 o'clock on.
Mm. Mm.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, she never should have told me that.
Yeah. But you did have that song Jesus is Love.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you had songs like that every once in a while.
Now, we're actually thinking about putting that back into some of our shows.
Hmm.
Jesus is love.
Yeah, people remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, matter of fact, we just had a discussion on it this past weekend.
Hmm.
And because, the guys were saying, some of them said, well, I don't quite know the track. I don't know my part in it. So,
Mm.
well, dude, get the record.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a standard for the in the catalog.
Yeah,
Was it
yeah.
79 or 80 somewhere in there?
80 or 81.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I think it was 80. Yeah.
there was a time, Donna Summer had a song right around that time similar. There was a period there where people were expressing things like that on a regular record. It wasn't a gospel record. I think her song was called "I Believe in Jesus,"
Yeah.
and it was just part of the record. And
Yeah, well,
but
there are a lot of artists that have done that, right?
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Instead of
so,
making separate records. By the
yeah,
way, before we wrap up, I want to. We haven't talked at all about race and race relations, but I want to talk about it in the context of you've lived this period on the road.
yes.
What are the changes that you saw? I mean, early on, were there places you couldn't go? Did you see that changing, or were you already past that era when you guys began touring?
I wish I could say we were past it, but we were not. I mean, there were certain places that we thought we could perform in, and they said nope, right? But all of this was in the South. A
Okay.
lot of it took place in Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Um, and mistreatment was, I mean, I remember one time we were driving. This was in I think it was Waycross, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
We were driving a 2-lane road in the dark. It was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. We were leaving a gig, right? And we had our band. We were driving down, and all of a sudden these state trooper cars just came out of nowhere
Mm.
and pulled us over, told us to get out. And then they made us lay down on the lines in the highway. They made us lay down on those lines. And then they started taking out they had shotguns, and they would cock them and then put them up to our heads
Mm.
or press them in our, you know, rectum, I guess I could say,
Yikes.
as hard as they could. And they were just calling us all kind of names, and they were just laughing.
Mm.
And then it was 2 cars at first, and another one came, and he was telling us what they ought to do to us while nobody would find us, over in those woods over there. Nobody's going to find you when we finish
Mm.
with you. It's that kind of thing. And
Wow.
then thank God they laughed away into their cars and drove off and just left us laying in the middle of the road.
Mm.
And we didn't know whether to get up or what, right? But we finally got up and we said, we need to get the heck out of here.
Mm.
And jumped in our van and drove off.
Mm.
And there were other times. One time we had a flat tire and the cops came and put guns on us and, again, put them up to our heads. And I
Mm.
mean, it's, and they call you all kind of names and boy, you better get out of here. And we pull in the gas stations and they wouldn't even give us gas.
Mm.
Okay. So
When
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 we
when
were
when did you see the when did you see things improve?
I'd say this all was happening back in 69 and 70,
Got it.
71 maybe. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think after that, when we
Mm-hmm.
got into the mid 70s, I think things started to improve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because all of a sudden there wasn't anywhere that I knew of that we were uh, asked to play or we wanted to play that we were told no.
And your shows were pretty mixed, right?
Yeah, we were pop, R&B, gospel. We had all kinds of songs in our
Mm-hmm.
shows. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like, look, one of our intros was "Liar"
Mm-hmm.
by the Three Dog Night.
Right.
That's how we came on stage. So yeah, I mean, we played so many different artists. But remember, at that time, we didn't have a hit record of our own,
Mm-hmm.
right? We were playing top 40.
Right.
And I'll say this for any band. It is so easy to have a great show when you're playing top 40.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you get to handpick the best records, the best songs in the world
Right.
to put in your show.
Yeah.
You just got to organize them, you know, and do things on stage to make them interesting. But God Almighty. But now, on the other hand, when you have a hit song, it's the same thing, right? I mean, every time we start a song up, we don't even get into the song, people are already screaming.
Yeah.
You know, a vocal hasn't even happened yet.
Yeah. They know the first few bars of the song, they know.
That's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of the songs, and I mean a lot of them, they just start singing. And sometimes they take over and they lose the beat, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And they've already started into the second verse, and you haven't even got this. You know, we haven't even gotten there yet on stage, but they already starting to sing it.
That's amazing.
So look, man,
Yeah. Yeah.
both sides are really wonderful. I think the best side though is when they're your songs.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Well, listen, it was a lot of fun to produce that track with you and for you and be part of
Yeah,
history. You guys have such an amazing history, and I want to thank you for, coming out to Nashville and working with that on that song with us. And it was a great pleasure to be able to do a tour with you of your life over the last period of time and all the work you guys have done. And so, thanks for stopping by
oh, it's
and for
my
your
pleasure,
friendship.
Mark. You're one of the good guys.
Mm, well.
Okay, and stay that way because there's not many.
We'll stay that way. That's hard to do.
I know.
But I'll stay away from the sauce like you did.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I got that from my wife when we were talking, and I told her I was doing this, and she said, "Oh yeah, and she said, he's one of the good guys."
Okay.
So,
All right, we'll stick with that for now.
all right.
Well, thanks for coming by.
Thank you. We talk later. Bye bye now.
All right.